At dawn, on a quiet European morning in 1914, the world still believed that war, if it came at all, would be short, controlled, and civilized. Trains were running on time, cafes were open, newspapers spoke in careful language, and most people had no idea that within just 24 hours, history would be ripped apart forever. What happened in the first 24 hours of World War I was not just the beginning of a war, it was the moment the modern world was born through chaos, fear, and irreversible decisions. Picture Europe as a tightly wound clock. Every empire, every alliance, every military plan was a gear locked into place. All it needed was one small push. That push had already happened weeks earlier with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But the true explosion came when diplomacy finally collapsed. In the early hours of July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary officially declared war on Serbia. On paper, it looked like a regional conflict. In reality, it was the spark that ignited World War I. As news spread through telegram wires, government offices across Europe came alive. Ministers rushed into emergency meetings. Military commanders opened sealed envelopes containing war plans that had been waiting for years. Years of nationalist propaganda had convinced people that war would be glorious and quick. Within hours, Austria-Hungary began military preparations. Troops were mobilized, artillery units were moved toward the Serbian border. Railways became arteries of war, transporting soldiers instead of passengers. Every train timetable had been prepared years in advance, calculated down to the minute. Meanwhile, in Berlin, Germany watched closely. Germany was bound to Austria-Hungary by alliance and loyalty. German leaders believed that if war was coming, it was better to strike early. The idea of a future war against Russia and France terrified them. So even though Germany had not yet declared war, the gears of the German war machine began to turn during those same first 24 hours. In Paris, France followed every telegram with growing alarm. France was tied to Russia by alliance and still haunted by its defeat to Germany decades earlier. French leaders knew that if Germany went to war with Russia, France would be dragged in. Across the English Channel, Britain appeared calm on the surface. There was no immediate declaration of war. Many British citizens went about their day as usual. But behind closed doors, the British government debated its obligations. Would Britain defend Belgian neutrality? Would it support France? During those first hours, Britain was already drifting toward war, even if it did not yet admit it. What makes the first 24 hours of World War I so chilling is how normal life still looked. Shops were open. Families ate dinner together. Children played in the streets. Yet decisions made in quiet offices were sealing the fate of millions. This contrast between ordinary life and extraordinary consequences is what gives this moment its haunting power. Alliances forced reactions. Military timetables demanded speed. Pride prevented compromise. Even leaders who feared the consequences felt trapped by their own systems. Many people believed the war would be over by Christmas. That belief helped fuel early support. Few understood that industrialized warfare would turn Europe into a slaughterhouse. The first 24 hours planted the seeds of trench warfare, total war, and a death toll unlike anything the world had ever seen. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel. As night fell on that first day, embassies burned documents, generals slept little, and soldiers packed their bags. Even though it would not be fully activated yet, its shadow loomed large during those first 24 hours. Once Germany moved, there would be no turning back. Austria-Hungary, confident in German support, felt emboldened. The empire believed a swift strike against Serbia would restore its prestige. What it did not realize was that this decision would expose its weaknesses and accelerate its collapse. In the first 24 hours, Austria-Hungary stepped onto a path that would lead to its own destruction. Russia's hesitation did not last long. Military leaders argued that failing to act would make Russia look weak. Partial mobilization orders were drafted. Even discussing them alarmed Germany. In 1914, mobilization was seen as an act of war. The first day was filled with misunderstandings, assumptions, and worst-case thinking. France quietly began its own military preparations, careful not to provoke Germany openly. French leaders tried to appear calm, but the memory of invasion haunted them. They knew that if Germany attacked, it would move fast. The first 24 hours were not just about action, they were about fear. Britain continued to debate. Many politicians hoped mediation was still possible, but reports from Europe painted a bleak picture. As the hours passed, the possibility of staying out of the conflict grew smaller. Britain's global empire and naval power meant its eventual entry would turn a European war into a true world war. One of the most tragic aspects of the first 24 hours of World War I is how many opportunities for peace still existed. How quickly they vanished. A delayed telegram, a misinterpreted message, a refusal to back down. Each small failure pushed Europe closer to catastrophe. By the time the first day ended, the world had crossed an invisible line. Even without massive battles yet, the logic of war had taken over. Economies began shifting toward military production. Censorship plans were prepared. Emergency laws were drafted. Freedom itself was quietly suspended in the name of survival. The emotional weight of this moment cannot be overstated. People believed they were witnessing history, but they did not know what kind. The optimism, the fear, the excitement, and the dread all mixed together. The first 24 hours of World War I were filled with human emotion on a scale rarely seen. That is why historians study this single day so closely. It shows how fragile peace really is. As midnight approached, Europe was no longer the same. Borders were becoming battle lines. Alliances were transforming into chains. The war that would reshape politics, redraw maps, and change human psychology forever had officially begun. And this was only the beginning. If you want to understand what happened next, how the first week escalated into total war, and how ordinary people were pulled into the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen, make sure you visit the channel and watch the next video. The story of World War I is not just history, it is a warning written in blood.